we start building larger and more complex and higher stakes electrical systems, that demand's only going to increase. You don't know how many parts you need or what parts you need until you get more people and proper documentation out there. So an understanding of how stuff is put together, it is the #1 bottleneck to not just data center maintenance and construction, but electrification broadly. Behind the installation of every single EV charger going in all these parking lots and commercial solar on a roof, it would take somebody a couple of days just to figure out how all this is put together, how it is that we can attach this new stuff into a, 1940s electrical system.
I don't think people appreciate the scale and size of this problem. You know, as I was digging around, there's 5.9 million buildings in the US alone that are undocumented. And this is at a time where, 70% of the world's AI queries are going through these hidden data centers somewhere in Northern Virginia. When so much of this problem is hidden by design, how do you help people understand the scale of the electrification challenge? Ian, thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, man, happy to be here.
Good. Well, I'm happy to have you. And I'm so glad you joined me because I don't think people appreciate the scale and size of this problem. You know, as I was digging around, there's 5.9 million buildings in the US alone that are undocumented. And this is at a time where, 70% of the world's AI queries are going through these hidden data centers somewhere in Northern Virginia. When so much of this problem is hidden by design, how do you help people understand the scale of the electrification challenge?
For every facility that is out there, say 5.9 million or 10 million facilities, inside of each one of those, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of pieces of electrical equipment and millions of wires connecting them. It is the history of construction in the United States. This is the result of that over our entire time here as we've been building buildings since the beginning of the United States. It is that is what we were trying to capture. And it is huge and immensely important. And you could call it the lifeblood of our economy and our functioning world is electricity flowing through all of these pieces of equipment behind walls and inside of electrical rooms, right around the corner from where you sit right now.
And what's the challenge of it being undocumented? We've been doing things the way we've been doing them. We're in this building right now, the lights are on. What's the problem ahead? The
problem with documentation is, like much of the other industries that have been digitized. Sure, the financial industry was documented, but it was on paper spreadsheets, right? And Excel came out, and then the entire fintech revolution over the last 20 years, of which my CTO was a part of that, right? He ran Venmo. Digitizing the transfer of money was an immense undertaking and a huge boon to the economy. Right now, the electrical industry operates on PDFs, hand-drawn drawings on legal pads, and paper panel schedules inside of a piece of equipment. It is old school. It is the same now as it was in the 1960s.
So if a hospital or a data center or a facility is running undocumented systems, what's the big deal? We're talking fires, outages, loss of money, loss of life. How big is this problem?
Let me give you a real world example.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of our customers, their data center in southeastern United States, a few weeks ago, right before they put Conduit into their system, there was a chiller on the roof that went out. Now a chiller cools air ultimately. And in a data center, that's incredibly important. You have to keep all these racks cool. So, oh no, the chiller went down. Question 1. Question 2, what feeds that? I don't know. Right? It's going to take me half an hour, 45 minutes to go figure this out. It costs around $500,000 an hour when a data center is down. Let's talk about hospitals for a second. You got people laying on the operating table, and there's a piece of equipment over here. Nobody is quite sure how to turn this on and off. It'd take them 20, 30 minutes to go chase this down and figure it out. That is an immense problem. And it is in every building you go into. Now, the scale is getting bigger, and the problem is magnified in what we call high stakes systems, right? Major critical infrastructure like data centers, water treatment plants, hospitals. These are very important electrical systems. And the price in either dollars or lives is significant when something goes down, even for a few minutes.
Who pays, I guess, in that case? Who is most incentivized for this documentation to be done correctly? Is it the electricians? Is it the facility owner? Do they keep passing the buck?
Yeah, well, so we call this the stakeholders of an electrical system. Right? You got electricians or electrical contractors, as we call them. So electricians work for electrical contractors, usually the companies that contract with a facility. You get the facilities maintenance guys and managers. Oftentimes, this facilities maintenance group is a subcontractor to the owner, right? So you've got contractors, You've got the owner of a facility. You've got the insurance provider who is responsible for and bears the risk of everything that happens inside of that facility, including electrifications and fires. And then you've got the regulators. So OSHA, your local and state building commissions, those kinds of things, right, that are worried about what's going on inside of a facility.
So AI data centers are projected to need to triple capacity by 2030 and doubling the demands on the grid, which we're going to get into. And Google and Microsoft have both said that if we don't get enough electricians, it is going to hamstring AI in the US. What is the biggest choke point in the AI boom?
There is more work to be done than ever before and less people to do it at an increasing pace. The problem is huge, and there are many people working now to combat it. Trade schools are starting to really ramp back up. Obviously the rates for electricians are going up through the roof.
Well, just give us an estimate. Like, what's a typical electrician making today?
I believe that the number one union here in New York going for like $110 an hour right now, journeyman. And we'll have to check that before we put it out there. But it's a lot. The base rate is tremendous.
Six figures a year.
Oh, well into six figures. $250,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right? When you start doing overtime, right? Yeah. So at $110, $120 an hour, it's $240,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right? For an electrician. And that's just working 40 hours a week. So I mean it's increasing everywhere. And it's a reflection of demand. The demand for electricians is going up at an increasing rate. And there is no kind of end in sight for demand and increase in demand, not just for power generation and demand for like energy, but also for the people that can install and use it. Think about it this way. I thought about this just a couple of days ago as I was flying into New York. It was like nighttime. And I think about this every time I fly into a city. I mean, obviously it's beautiful, right? The city out here in front of you. Every single one of those lights you see, it's like the stars in the sky. They're uncountable. An electrician had his hands or her hands on every single one of those for minutes, hours sometimes, right? Depending on the size of the fixture. And that's just the fixture at the end of the wire. Think about all the things that feed that. It's a tremendous amount of work, and the scale is huge and never ending. And as we start building larger and more complex and higher stakes electrical systems, that demand's only going to increase. And we're losing the guys that taught me, my journeyman that I came up under. He was my age or a little younger than me, honestly, when I started working with him. He's retiring, man, in a few years. And his whole generation are all about to retire with like good pensions and like they're out like deuces, y'all. and they're leaving by the thousands, by the tens of thousands. And we got to replace them. We have to replace them and we got to train them up. It's not like you can just like turn somebody on as an electrician. It takes 4 or 5 years to get them up to the speed that they need to be at to be able to work and operate in the environments we need to.
Yeah, let's talk about that need versus the kind of turnover, right? So by again most estimates, the U.S. needs 81,000 new electricians every year for the next decade to keep pace with demand. Half the workforce is turning over, right? Maybe more than half by at least the counts that we have. And yet data centers are trying to run 24/7 crews to keep up with all these challenges you're talking about so they don't have the outages that we've discussed here. I mean, let's like take it to its logical extreme. Is AGI dependent on there being enough electricians? Are we never going to reach the peak level of AI we need to? And is the bottleneck really people or is it just parts?
It's both. It's absolutely both. But you don't know how many parts you need or what parts you need until you get more people and proper documentation out there. So an understanding of how stuff is put together, it is the number one bottleneck to not just data center maintenance and construction, but electrification broadly. So behind the installation of every single EV charger going in all these parking lots and commercial solar on a roof, like we're in this building. How old is this building? 150 years old? Right? Maybe. But if you were to put solar on this roof, it would take somebody a couple of days just to figure out how all this is put together and how it is that we can attach this new stuff into a 1940s electrical system that nobody kept track of. Nobody has any idea how any of this is put together. In this building we sit in or 15-year-old data center down the street. Nobody has any idea. So that is, if you're going to put new equipment, new loads inside of a facility, you got to understand how it's put together. And nobody does. It's the first step.
And why do you think this labor shortage happened? I mean, just to kind of like set the scene for people, used to be that electricians were a really popular trade. They've been making good money for a long time, but somewhere along the way, we stopped creating new electricians as we started retiring more of them. You came from this world. Why did it change?
Bro, I was an outlier. So the only reason that I am in this industry the way I am and got so deep into it is because my family, or that's what we do, right? Really back a couple of generations, right? On my dad's side anyway. So they put me out in the field pretty early to go. I was like 14. My dad was like, "You're working this summer." So I spent all my summers and break as an electrician and really fell in love with the trade, as many people do once they get into it. However, I think 98% of my class, and I graduated in 06, everybody went to college. That is just the expectation.
4-year university, college.
4-year anniversary, you take on a bunch of loans, which I ultimately did because I went back for electrical engineering. But the incentive for like 2 generations, 3 generations was you go to college. And I think that is for a variety of reasons. And put on my Mike Rowe
Sure.
piece here, right?
Yeah, Mr. Dirty Jobs.
Right. But there was a push by American society generally, not to mention, federal government programs for student loans that made it easy. And that was the point, made it easy for kids to go to college, everybody to go do a 4-year degree. But what we're seeing now is a huge burden of student debt, student loans, and the jobs aren't making that much money, not enough to pay them back, right? So there is a push, and a very successful push, honestly, by the electrical community writ large to get more people and more kids into trade school. I know for sure that the Dallas IEC branch, which is the non-union side, I think has quadrupled their apprenticeship program in the last 3 years. So it's catching up. But if those kids are still in high school. If they get out in 2 years, they still have 4 years till what they call turn out, become journeyman electrician. You got to work 8,000 hours and go to trade and continue going to trade school. We're going to bottom out.
Yeah.
Right. If we're retiring 100,000, journeyman electricians, qualified electricians annually, we're going to bottom out, and there's going to be such a shortage of electricians, and we haven't caught up yet. And even at that rate, it's going to take a while to catch up.
Yeah. And let's say we're not able to catch up. Give me the sort of catastrophic scenario. Obviously, without some of the tools and work that you're doing at Conduit, if things continue the way they are today, what does the next decade look like?
We will not be able to build the infrastructure that we need. If we do not catch up in either electricians, supply chain problems, or technology, we will not be able to keep up with the rest of the world and meet the demand that is necessary for us to move forward technologically and to continue to be the leader in the world in terms of technology. You can have all the chips you want, but if you can't power them, it doesn't matter, right? So we have to build the infrastructure, and we have to put the pieces in place to make that possible.
So now I have you here because I've had the pleasure to get to know you over the last, couple of months, I'd say since the start of the year really, and gotten to see Conduit in action. What does Conduit actually do? What does it look like in the field? And why does it need to exist?
Conduit is a data platform for the electrical industry. We catalog things, electrical equipment, and all of the raceways that connect them. Conduit is built like a database, but it's built in the structure of an electrical system, right? So switchboards have panels downstream, and panels have motors and other loads downstream, and everything leads up to a utility connection or a generator or a solar array. Everything is connected and structured in such a way that it understands how it's put together and why that matters, and you can run analysis across it. Conduit is primarily used today by large commercial and industrial electrical contractors to catalog all the facilities they serve. They have relationships with hundreds, thousands of facilities, some of my customers. One of our brand new customers out in Salt Lake City does a distribution center for UPS. It has 3,500 pieces of electrical equipment inside of it. It is a massive facility, similar in size and scope and stakes to like a data center. Right? They're moving hundreds of thousands of packages through there every day. It's the largest one west of the Mississippi, and they're putting it on the Conduit platform. Right? So each piece of equipment gets its own asset tag. I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but each gets its own asset tag, which is a Conduit tag, and anybody can walk up to it, scan that QR code, and it'll take you to that piece of equipment inside of the Conduit ecosystem.
It's like a Carfax report for that
Exactly.
panel.
So it's got all the details about it, and you understand, it's like that thing at the mall when you walk up to it, it's like, where am I?
Yeah.
Right? You understand where you're in the context of the electrical system. This piece of equipment, upstream is this major switchboard. Downstream, if I open it up, I can see it's feeding this chiller and this EV charger and this bank of receptacles inside of the waiting room, right? So these are all the things that are downstream and all the things that are upstream. And then you can walk to another piece of equipment and scan that, right? And have an understanding of where you sit and everything that's going on inside of that piece of equipment. So here's the last preventative maintenance visual inspection. Here's the last infrared image. Here's all the photos of the panel with the cover off so you can see the wire sizes and how it's all wired up. Right? So it all has all the detail you need at that piece of equipment. So once a facility is what we call captured, it's a complete transparent look, an understanding of where you are in the system and what's going on with each piece of equipment, not just on site, but from the office, right?
Yeah.
So like I need to answer some questions about like how this facility I'm putting a bid together for to do solar on the roof, who's the manufacturer and how much capacity is inside of the switchboard. Well, you can answer that question just sitting at your desk once the facility's been captured. Otherwise, it is one, maybe two truck rolls out there and a bunch of hand-drawn scribbles on a legal pad.
And how often does a facility have to be captured? Is it kind of like a do it once and then you're kind of just doing some small maintenance on it over time? Or is it every so often you have to come back and basically, it's like an annual physical when you go to your doctor, you check all the same things over again?
So a little bit of both. The big work is up front. You got to do the initial capture. But electrical systems, think about it like a spider web. Spider web, like the middle, if it gets shaken up, like the whole web comes apart, right? But it doesn't change very often, right? The middle is always about the same. So like 70% of an electrical system, probably about the same as it was when it was installed. It's the stuff on the edges, right? It's this wing, we're renovating this floor, we're updating this piece of equipment, we're changing around the line here, right? That's where like all the changes happen. And that's what we have to true up. So our contractors and facilities that we work with, we say, let's do an initial capture process where we collect everything in the facility and get like a complete, verified, up-to-date record. And then every 6 months, we're going to come by and just like true it up.
Yeah.
Right. And just make sure it's up to date. And that way you've always got a digital living up-to-date record that you could dig it.
Okay, so let's go boots on the ground. I'm an electrician that walks into a facility that's not on Conduit today, but I'm armed with an iPad that's got Conduit instead of my usual clipboard. What changes about my workflow?
So how it would happen previously. So I used to do this a lot. In fact, this is why I started the company. Okay. I used to do this by hand. And the process was usually me walking into a maintenance director's office and going, "Hey dude, where are your as-builts?" And he'd be like, I got some old drawings under Bob's desk, right? The rest of it lives in Bob's head.
And Bob retired.
Yeah, well, Bob's off this week, right? Yeah, he's in the Caymans or whatever, right? So good luck. And I would start where the power company hits the side of the building, which we call this a utility connection. It's where the power company hits the meter and comes into the building. And I would start there and I would trace this cascade. I would collect this piece of equipment and then I would go follow all the raceways, the conduits downstream, and go to the next piece of equipment. And I would take a picture of that. And I would take the cover off and get the wire sizes and the makes and models of the breakers and all the details. And I would take a bunch of pictures of it and then I would follow the next piece. And I'll do this in this big web cascade of electrical equipment. And inside of a facility, you're talking about hundreds or thousands, like a large facility.
You're like Sherlock Holmes a little bit inside of this building.
Were you like sticking your head above ceilings? Like, where does that go? How does this all connect? Right? And there's, there's one hospital I did in particular, St. Vincent's Hospital on the south side of Birmingham. It has 896 pieces of equipment in it. It took me, an apprentice electrician, like 2.5 weeks to collect all of this. And we had to go back multiple times because I drew it by hand on a big sheet of paper, a piece of paper out of the plotter, which is our big thing that prints, construction documents. And I would draw it by hand with a red pen. And I would take hundreds of pictures, and then I'd go back to the office, and I got to redraw my hand-drawn bullshit, which is I have horrible handwriting, right? So I have to remember what I meant by this and draw it in AutoCAD. We're going to redraw everything in AutoCAD, and then plug it into this old-school software called SKM Power Tools that crunches the numbers for analysis of the electrical system. And then I would print it out and put it into a big binder and take it back to the maintenance director, and he would put it under his desk and never think about it again. So what happens with Conduit, alternatively, before they get to the facility, they've sent us any old documents that they can find, right? If they've got an old single line, they'll send it to us. We'll ingest it into Conduit. So when they're walking in there, they've already got 70% of it pretty much already completed. What they have to do is verify it, though. And they have a stack of Conduit asset tags in their pocket. They start at the utility and they go, "Yep, that's correct. Picture, asset tag." Downstream. "Yep, that's correct. Picture, asset tag." Click, and they verify the system. And the asset tags are important. Not only do they give you like a window into that piece of equipment when anybody walks up to it, but it also verifies that piece of equipment actually exists because somebody laid hands on it, right? So it's a verification on both directions from our perspective as data housers, right? We know that this piece of equipment is actually out there because you can build a panel in Conduit all day long, right? Call it whatever you want. Call it, J Kapoor, right? But it doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
So putting the asset tag on there means that it's verified. Yeah. And so they'll walk through and they'll collect all the equipment. And then at the end, there'll be some differences to the single line that we have in there. And they'll true those up, add the stuff that's there, take away the stuff that's not. And then at the end of it, you have a captured, up-to-date, verified single line diagram.
What they call a digital twin in the industry.
We are not a digital twin in the industry sense of the word. What we are is a source of truth for the boots on the ground in the electrical industry, try to make decisions and analyze the systems sitting in front of them.
Great. Okay. I want to talk about how you unlock real dollars, because that's ultimately, I think, what matters to your customers and certainly matters to investors. Electricians are making, a couple $100,000 a year. Labor market is super tight for them. Demand continues to grow, but there's jobs to be done. So how's Conduit unlocking jobs and unlocking dollars for those electricians?
So I'll give you the most recent example that we've got. We just released and announced a new partnership with FLIR, FLIR. They are owned by Teledyne, which is the Swedish company, and they are a infrared camera manufacturer. So it is a requirement by many insurance providers, and now as part of NFPA 70B, which is a page turner, let me tell you. But it's the National Fire Protection Association. They write the National Electric Code, which is NFPA 70. 70B is an addendum to that, and it has to do with preventative maintenance of electrical equipment. A big part of the preventative maintenance of electrical equipment for NFPA 70B is infrared imaging, which if you think about an infrared image, it shows hot spots and cold spots. You can imagine why a hot spot inside of a piece of equipment may be a little worrisome.
Yeah.
Right? It means something's overloaded or something's not connected correctly. And so many insurance providers will say, like, you have to do infrared imaging annually of your electrical system equipment. Previously, that was all on paper. So Conduit just released a new integration with FLIR, where we collect the information from FLIR cameras, the infrared information, do some quick analysis and kind of data cleaning on it, and then generate a report in a matter of seconds. We have cut the time to do an infrared audit in a major facility down by half.
What does it typically take?
Depends on the size of the facility, but you think a medium-sized facility, it could take 2 or 3 weeks. Half of that being building a report in Microsoft Word. Jay, have you ever tried to format a photo in Microsoft Word?
Oh, jeez.
Okay, now try and do that.
PTSD.
Now try and do that like 1,600 times in one document. Taking an infrared image off of an SD card and then one you imported off of your phone and put them next to each other
Oh my God.
on every page for like 850 pages.
Yeah. My
Can you
stomach is turning
imagine
just thinking
the
about it.
nightmare? And these are not like Microsoft Office dudes. These are electricians doing this, spending their hours in making $100 an hour in Microsoft Word fighting with formatting. What an immense waste of time. This has been like one of my like pet projects since I started Conduit because I did this, right? So now the reporting is seconds.
Yeah.
Building that report. So we have completely cut that off. And then we also have that information so you don't have to redo it again next year. You do have to take the infrared image, but it is not a matter of we have to redocument this piece of equipment. It already lives in Conduit and we just have last year's photo and this year's photo and the analysis. So it cuts things in half this year. It cuts things by 3/4 next and the years after.
Let's talk about,
to answer your question, sorry, that was a long answer, but to get all the way back around to it, if you have a unlimited amount of infrared imaging projects that you need to get to, you can now get to them more than twice as fast. And every single one is a new bump of revenue that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
So Conduit right now is capturing a lot of data about facilities that already exist. And a lot of these electricians, I'm sure, have a ton of demand jobs to do. Are you unlocking new jobs for them as well? If you're an electrician starting out on Conduit, do you have an advantage in terms of winning new business?
Yes. Okay. So this is something new and a little bit, we've kept it under wraps up until very recently. So we have what we call Conduit Pullbox. And I have relationships and I'm building relationships with large facility maintenance organization and owners across the U.S. right, that have portfolios of facilities in the thousands. All of these places. You cannot go up to a facility owner or a facilities maintenance organization and go like, where are your electrical records? They do not have them. I don't even have to ask the question. They know what the problem is. So what I am working on now is building a huge data set of facility maintenance organizations who have given me their old, out-of-date PDFs. We have ingested them in Conduit, and we are going to plug them up to the Conduit contractor network. So if you are a customer of Conduits, then you're going to have access to a new bank of work, some of which you may have been trying to get for years. That warehouse facility down the road that hasn't called you back in 15 years, suddenly they're on Conduit and they need a contractor to come and do a collection for them.
And you know who's rated for what jobs, because if they've already done jobs on Conduit, you know, hey, this looks like a job you already did 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the we're trying to build a network, not just a tool for electricians to catalog electrical information. We are building a platform for the electrical industry to share information and to get done what we all know needs to get done, which is digitize all these records. And so this is one way we're going about it. So as a Conduit customer, you not only have access to all the suite of tools, but we're going to be handing you work as well if I do my job right.
We touched a little bit about where the industry is going and where it goes if we're not able to address these labor shortages and these productivity shortages. I'd love a hot take from you. What are people in the industry spending too much time and mind share on that you feel like is kind of a waste of time?
I think the biggest, in a lot of ways, waste of time in the electrical industry in particular is BIM modeling, BIM, which is building information modeling. So it is a three-dimensional, what you were kind of calling a digital twin earlier. It's a really incredible idea, right? To have a fully functional three-dimensional model of a facility. In practice, it is nearly impossible. And the amount of time and resources that goes into trying to accomplish this and the end benefit of that make zero sense to me. It's one thing to design, and I was actually part of the first BIM team in the Birmingham area, which is where I'm based, in 2009. We're building a big hospital building, 9 floors, Women and Children's Center, and it was the first building that we were going to create in 3 dimensions before they even broke ground. Like, what a cool opportunity it was. It was an amazing opportunity. Learned BIM, worked with the general contractor, and I was contracted with the electrical contractor as an engineer. And we built it 95% of the way, and at the last minute, the plumber bailed, and the whole thing was moot because everybody has to be involved or it's not valuable.
Yeah. And
so the complexity and the detail that you can get is a great thing to shoot towards. But if you don't get it all the way, then it's really kind of meaningless. And that's a lot. There's a lot of time and resources spent on that I don't think is
like billions of venture dollars spent on BIM.
Billions.
Yeah.
Billions. And it's one thing in like the architecture space because you can, okay, this room is this dimension, right? But look at that 1/2-inch raceway there. You're gonna model that, and is it and the offset is a 3-inch offset? No, you're not going to get that right. And if that's off, a little bit off, then that box is in the wrong place. If the box is in the wrong place, then those lights are off a little bit. And let's multiply this across this whole circuit all the way back to the electrical room. It's off. And now it's going through the wall in the wrong place. The complexity is immense. It's not worth it. And if you do get that right, what do you get out of that?
Probably not.
That light is actually there. It's actually there.
Yeah.
Right? But modeling it doesn't benefit you that much.
So what should they be spending time on instead? Time and money on instead?
So we have to accelerate boots on the like the work done by boots on the ground, by people out there installing real electrical equipment, installing and maintaining all of this real electrical equipment. And they don't need to know the exact position of that box. They need to know the number of wires inside of it and whether or not there's a switch leg or not.
Yeah.
Right?
You started with kind of the simple idea of contractors tagging assets. How does that small wedge turn into owning this vast sea of electrification data? Connect the kind of flow and dots for me.
Yeah, so we talked about this earlier, that there are multiple stakeholders inside of a facility. So the asset tag, the Conduit asset tag sort of sits at the center of all of these concentric circles. And it is, okay, we have verified that this piece of equipment is here. That is valuable to a lot of different people, a lot of different groups. The contractor can now use this for recurring revenue, right? So they can now charge to maintain the records of this electrical system on a recurring rate with this facility. The facility gets benefit out of that because now they don't have to go chase stuff down. They know how everything is put together, and they have complete visibility into their living electrical system through their contractor. The insurance provider now knows that this piece of equipment is here and the status of its maintenance. Right, so their risk is mitigated, or if it's not mitigated, they're at least aware of it, right? And then the regulators, right? So OSHA has a hard time. It's prohibitively expensive, in all honesty, to enforce electrical safety regulations because it's all on paper.
That's a hot take.
So difficult. Yes, it is. I mean, yes, I will. It is. So NFPA 70E in particular is the analysis I used to do on electrical systems. It is not enforced by OSHA as it should be. Most facilities are not compliant with an FPA 70E. And it's not reasonable to expect them to be because it is thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get this done, depending on your size facility.
Yeah.
The big project of Conduit is that if we bring the barrier of entry to get compliant down, OSHA can enforce more, which means more people will get compliant, which means OSHA can enforce more. And the end status of this is that contractors have consistent work, facilities are safer, and Conduit goes public. Everybody wins. Everybody wins, right? Like that's the world we want to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you talk to contractors, everybody claims to own the customer data. Why is your data set different? Like why is this as you're calling it, the Bloomberg terminal of the grid?
Yeah. So right now, the way it works, I told you about that hospital that I worked on years ago. The engineer of record owns the digital assets that we built.
Yeah.
They own the CAD files, they own the Revit model, whatever it may be. The only way for the hospital to get a record of that is to request from the engineer a PDF. They're not sharing a central model. Please. That's proprietary data. Please, no. So what we're trying to do, and this is a big hurdle for us because it's shaking the industry a little bit and going like, no, everybody needs access to this shared data set. And who and how folks edit it. We had one of our soon-to-be customers this morning was asking about, well, what if my competitor comes in there and like wants to get the data? And it's like, well, if they're already in the building, they can collect this data themselves on paper. But like the most important thing is that everybody has access to it. Because yes, on the one hand, you want to like lock everything down, but that really only serves one party. And the world that we're shooting towards, it's the collective, all boats rise when you have the data in place, and everybody can do their job faster and safer and more reliably.
If by 2030, to meet this 3xing of AI demand, meet this 2xing of electrician need, let's say we do arm electricians with Conduit, and all of this data does end up on Conduit, what does the next decade look like?
If all of the country and world's electrical infrastructure data is on Conduit, then it is going to give visibility at the high, medium, and low level to everyone in the industry to make decisions and do installations and updates to electrical systems faster by an order of magnitude. If you can see everything from a bird's eye view, I mean, what has Google Maps done, like improved in terms of efficiency? For us as a species, right? Yeah. It is that level of granularity that we are collecting secondary side of the meter data, and it does not exist. Decision making at the utility level about distribution of resources given new demands, electrification upgrades broadly will be faster and more complete and much easier to do, and the need for electricians will eventually level off because the main concern will be maintenance and installation, not tracing stuff down. Some estimates, some of our customers, we're doing like ROI calculators for some of our customers right now. And some of them, when you really get talking to them, say that their guys in the service vans in particular spend up to half their time just chasing stuff down. It is a huge time suck. That is just like how we've been doing business for 3 generations. But it has to stop, and we're going to stop it.
And for Conduit, what does success look like for you?
For Conduit, we want to be the Bloomberg terminal, the Google Maps of all electrical system information, and be the central kind of live data hub for all of the stakeholders of an electrical system. So we are used and operated by the electrical contractors, but we have an API tying out to the insurance provider, letting them know that the 70B compliance is up to date. A OEM or manufacturer can get a notification that this piece of equipment that was installed in 1960 is probably going to fail in the next 3 years, and they need to get one started to replace it. The OSHA doesn't have to come on site because they know you're 70B compliant, and all of these contractors have recurring and ongoing maintenance contracts with all the facilities that they serve. It is a utopian world, but one that we're going to get to.
Ian, this was super fun, man. I learned a bunch of things getting to know you over the last year, and I learned even more today. So I'm so grateful to have you on Climb.
Likewise, Jay. This has been just a blast, man. Thank you for having me on here, and I hope I can keep teaching you things.
Joining me. Thank you. Awesome, man.